that night I hit 3 home runs against the Yankees. So it was pretty amazing. You got the first time, you kind of got the cheer. The second home run, they're kind of like, okay. And then I tied it up in the eighth off Tom Gordon. And then you got the whole standing
Yeah.
ovation and everybody was wanting up. And I'm like, no, I'm not going out there. They were booing me the first inning. I'm not, you start, I'm not going. But that was an unbelievable night.
What's going on, guys? This is Brian Jones from PopCulture.com. And joining me today is a former Boston Red Sox star who won the World Series with the team in 2004. You can see him every weekday on the MLB Network on the show Intentional Talk, Kevin Millar. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
Brian, I appreciate you having me. I'm doing good. Thanks.
Oh, yeah, man, of course. So I want to talk about your career here in a little bit. But first, you have something very cool going on with Twisted Tea. They're unveiling a new flavor for Red Sox fan called Sweet Cherry Lime, which is sounds similar to Sweet Caroline. Red Sox fans know about that song very well. But what made you want to be part of this promotion?
Well, first of all, I'm going to be honest with you. It's an amazing, amazing tasting product right here. So when we're talking about the eighth inning at Fenway Park and they got Sweet Caroline going on, there's nothing better in any baseball stadium. And I truly mean that, even not being a homer, being a Red Sox homer. But, and now we're going, Sweet Cherry Lime, da, da, da. But it's a great tasting product. It's fun. Summertime, boys of summer are coming. So I just, I'm kind of a fake drinker. But when I say that, it's the stuff that tastes good is what I love. So it's a great tasting beverage.
Yeah, that's something I definitely have to check out. But you mentioned that Red Sox fans are singing Sweet Caroline in the eighth inning. When you were with the Red Sox, did you know anything about that tradition? And what was your reaction when you heard everyone singing it for the first time?
Yeah, it's funny because I grew up in Los Angeles, grew up a Dodger fan, listening to Vince Scully, right? And when you play for the Boston Red Sox, there's this passion and there's this different feel from East Coast baseball. West Coast baseball, they're trying to leave in the seventh inning to beat the traffic. East Coast baseball, they'll sit in 4 hours of traffic as long as those Red Sox win that baseball game. And so the tradition, when I'm at first base, you're throwing ground balls and here comes the eighth inning round. Then you start hearing the song. And by the way, that song, everybody starts, head bobbing to, the knees start going, you start clapping, you start singing. And then all of a sudden you realize the tradition of it. And it was so special because you had kids, you had moms, you had grandparents, you had dads, you had grandfathers, you had sons. It didn't matter how old or what generation we're in, you were singing that song and it gives you goosebumps. It really does, even talking about it.
No doubt about it. And as I mentioned, when you were with the Red Sox, you helped the team win the World Series in 2004. But in 2003, the team reached the ALCS only to lose to the Yankees. So after that series, did you and the rest of the teammates realize that you had something special and you could go all the way the following year?
Yeah, Brian, it's funny because you go through these painful times as an athlete, whether it's through the struggles or personal struggles or whatever it is. But then as a team, you've heard about this curse all these years and we weren't around there, right? We have these new guys in town, which is Billy Millar and Mark Bellhorn, Orlando Cabrera, and, David Ortiz, who turned into Big Papi. But in 2003, we lost game 7, the Aaron Boone home run. It was an unbelievable game. We lose our manager, Gray Little, who was a great man after that game. And, we were up 5-2 with 2 outs in the eighth and then the Yankees tied the game and we ended up losing later on. But the pain that you felt, the tears you shed, I think you have to go through those times because it made you tougher. So then what happens? We added Keith Folk and we added Kurt Schilling for that offseason. Terry Francona came over and this team was basically the same group. And that same group went through that kind of experience. And experience I always thought was overrated until you get there in that postseason. And that's what made Derek Jeter so good so many years. As you watch the great ones, their heart rate is at a normal level, right? Your Tom Brady's and your Derek Jeters, your Joe Montana's, whoever it is. And that's where the experience factor meant something to this squad. So here we are in 2004, same 2 teams, game 7, and even though we were down 0-3 and even down in game 4, but we had a chance to kind of go through those bad times in 2003 that made us stronger and tougher to go ahead and take this championship down in 2004.
Right. And other than the World Series, what would you say would be your favorite moment or memory when you were with the Red Sox?
personally, an individual moment was hitting 3 home runs against New York Yankees in July. I was at a point where I was struggling a little bit, made an error in the first inning. I was getting booed at home. They were talking about trading me at that time for like a Carlos Delgado to the Mets. And it was like, you hear all this rumbling. Now, when you get booed at home, that doesn't feel good. I'm like, holy cow. And that night I hit 3 home runs against the Yankees. So it was pretty amazing. You know, you got the first time, you kind of got the cheer. The second home run, they're kind of like, okay. And then I tied it up in the 8th off Tom Gordon. And then you got the whole standing ovation and everybody was wanting up. And I'm like, no, I'm not going out there. They were booing me the first inning. I'm not, you start, I'm not going. But that was an unbelievable night. We ended up losing that game that night. So it wasn't as good as it could have been. But 3 home runs against the Yankees at the time was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And when you talk about the Red Sox now, they're not off to a great start. Now, again, it's so early in the season. There's still 130 games left. But what do you think is the biggest issue for the Red Sox right now?
Yeah, I always joke around. It was April showers, but then in May, here come the flowers. So, when you're in an East Coast team, you do battle the weather. It's not San Diego where it's 80 degrees in April. And, that's a factor. It's a factor for pitchers. It's a factor for offensively. But this team hasn't played well. The Yankees have won 10 straight, which, starts magnifying the struggles. Now you're like, oh, Lord, here we go. You got the Blue Jays who aren't going anywhere. The Rays are tough. You have to find a way to take care of the Orioles. And they're obviously a big league team. It can beat you anytime. But I just think you need Sale back. You need that bullpen. Whitlock's done a good job to kind of, see what happens there. And spot starting and kind of in the bullpen, but you need guys to step up. I think offensively, as it gets warm, this team's going to hit. They got some great players. Trevor Story's going to get off to a nice start. I know he struggled. He hasn't hit a home run yet. And I know that when you sign with the Red Sox in this big deal, you try to do too much. You want to do so good, so quick. It takes some time and you just got to stay in yourself. So I think once Trevor kind of takes a deep breath, gets that first one out of the way, he'll be a great sign, and this team will be fine. It's just we got a long way to go.
Right. And you mentioned the Yankees and Blue Jays, they're off to good starts, along with the Dodgers, the Mets, and Brewers. When you look at those teams, and again, it's very early. A lot's going to change between now and September, even October. But of those teams, who do you think has the best chance to win it all?
Yeah, Dodgers are always the easy one to kind of lean on because their depth and their finances and things go on in July or whatever it is, they can go out and add somebody. The Giants get 0 credit, and they won 107 games last year, more than the Dodgers by 1. So they started a great series. But I do, the Brewers are so interesting to me because if they can hit and Yelich can get back on track to have that MVP type scene, not that that's all got to go on his shoulders, but I love the Kutch deal, him going over there, with that veteran presence, Andrew McCutchen. You have this 3-headed monster at the top of their starting staff with Josh Hader coming out of that bullpen. So you got Peralta and you got Burns. They got some guys that can throw. So I just, they could be a very scary team if they can get offensively some consistency.
Yeah, that's going to be definitely interesting to see. The Brewers, they made the playoffs last year, lost to the Braves, so they could probably they get everything right. They could probably step up and make a run at the World Series. But me being based in Atlanta, I'm a Braves fan, won the World Series last year. And it really just came out of nowhere because they had a losing record in August and then they just went on that run. Right. And they're just trying to do something that is very rare to do. And the Yankees won back-to-back World Series over 20 years ago. But when it comes to the National League, the last team to do that was the Reds in 75 and 76. Do you think now they're off to kind of a slow start as well with the Braves?
Right.
But do you think they have what it takes to run him back and win back-to-back World Series titles?
Yeah, it's very tough, Brian, right, to go back-to-back. And I think, you're the last team playing, so you've played more games than anybody. You have the signings that go on in the offseason. You have the ring ceremonies. Mm-hmm. Then obviously you had the Freddie Free trade. That was kind of weird. We never saw him not going to be a Brave, right? It was, you heard it was over the 6th year, was it 5-year, whatever it was. He goes to the Dodgers back home. You guys get Matt. And I'm going to tell you right now, this team's good. Acuna's back. Once again, he's trying to do a little too much. And, he's off to a little bit of a shaky start. But we can't forget the Braves did start off like this last year.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this game special, right? Is that you have such a long year in baseball. You're going to go through struggles. It's just in April, everything's magnified because that's all you have, right? As a hitter, if you're hitting 200, that's all you have in the scoreboard. You're going to go 2 for 20 throughout the year a few times. But when you got 400 bats, it doesn't, no one notices because your average only goes down here and there. So the Braves as a team are a very good team. And the Mets have gotten off to a very good start, very similar like the Yankees have in that East. So you get magnified, you get exposed when you're not playing well and that team up top's playing great. And then you got the Phillies in that thing and you got the Marlins. They could throw out anything at you at any night, could shut you down off pitching wise. So they'll be fine. I think the Braves will be right in this mix. It's tough to repeat though, but they got enough to do it.
And you talk about this on your show, Intentional Talk, but when you, after you retire from baseball, did you want to get into TV and broadcasting? Was that something you always wanted to do?
Well, it's funny because the network wasn't around when we played, right? It launched, I think, in 2009 and 10. And in 2010, I got released by the Cubs in spring training. So the timing was perfect. So when I was playing, we would get there and hopefully get an ESPN highlight. If you got a home run, you're sitting there waiting for Peter Gammons and Harold Reynolds and John Kruk to show you one highlight when I was with the Marlins, and then let alone you go to the Red Sox. Now you're the first highlight. I'm like, okay. You get a chance to see your double or single or whatever you did. And then the network launched. So after that happened, it's given a lot of players an opportunity to stay in the game, right? You don't know what you're going to do when you're done. You're a young man in life. You're 38 years old. Do you go into coaching, and so a lot of guys used to do that. Now you do have television. You have the NFL network. You have the NBA network. And then now you have the MLB network, which has done a remarkable job. And it's for the players, And so it's been fun to stay in the game that way. And, it wasn't easy at first because I was like, I didn't know anything about television, but I love people, man. I love to, kind of just talk the game and be around the guys.
Of course. And Intentional Talk has been around. I didn't even realize it's been around since 2011, making one of the longest running shows on the MLB network. So when you first started the show, did you realize that it was going to stay on MLB network as long as it has and be as successful as it has been?
No, what's funny is that I just, moved to Austin. I had 4 kids, in car seats. And then they asked, Chris Rose and I were friends and he worked for the Best Damn Sports Show. So we always got to kind of keep in touch. And, he was a remarkable guy in television and the experience that he had to help me along. And so when we got this show, they're like, oh, no, we can set up a camera in your house. And this is before, the pandemic and Zoom and all of the stuff. We were one of the first shows to kind of do it from home. And he was in LA. I was in Texas. We were feeding from New Jersey is where the network's at. And then you have a player on at the ballpark cams. Every stadium has these ballpark cams so we can get an interview from a player. So you have 4 locations you're trying to feed. And I'm sitting in this garage area trying to create this energy, not knowing, I'm thinking we're going to be fired in 2 months. But I'll tell you what, Chris Rose really helped me through this whole process because, they don't teach you how to, do television. You don't go to a 2-week school and go, hey, you just went from hitting Roger Clemens fastballs to now you got an earpiece in and a talkback button. And so to tell you that if I thought we were going to be going on our 11th year, I'd be like, no, Brian, there's no chance. But it has really kind of established itself. The players have fun with it. It's kind of like a clubhouse feel on television. I like to know who's the cheapest and who's eating the spread or first at the spread after the game. And so it kind of gives you an inside look because we are people. And I know a lot of times we get salary attached to us and our numbers attached to us. But at the end of the day, man, ball players are fun guys and they're jokesters and they're pranksters and, they love to have fun too. So I don't care if you're hitting 100 or 400. Let's come on the show and have some fun.
And that leads to my last question for you. When it comes to your broadcast career, what goals do you have moving forward?
To stay on television. I really enjoy it every day. I truly do. I still get nervous. I still, my nerves go underneath my armpits. Sometimes it looks like I'm smuggling water balloons. And I'm like, man, I'm always wearing the dark colors because you go up there. I'm like, oh no. So when that feeling stops, then I know it's time. But it was like the big leagues, I got butterflies every time I walk to the plate, and I think that means that you have passion and you love you doing what you do. And if you're not nervous, then the game's not good anymore. Right. So television is the same way. I enjoy it every day. And I still get nervous, giving interviews because I'm a terrible interview question guy answerer to this day, and I still struggle reading. And so we have fun with that, and everything you see is kind of organic.
Absolutely. Great show. I think you guys do a great job and when we work network, and I hope it stays on for another 11 seasons. So Kevin, thank you so much for your time. I do appreciate it. Congratulations on everything to you. And guys, thanks again for watching. And for more on Kevin and all your favorite sports stars, be sure to keep it locked right here on popculture.com.